the way I would paint in the early paintings was I'd take a 3x5 inch snapshot and a film loop, and I'd look at that figure, and I would then try to paint or draw it onto the canvas, and then I'd be sitting there going, oh, I really wish it was turned the other way, and then I'd have to erase it and sort of flip it around in my head, reversing what I was seeing, and became a very arduous kind of process. And then Photoshop comes along. And the family portrait of the Clementes, the experience of photographing them was very funny because they were not wanting to be in the same moment with each other. They were, skulking around in the background, or they were coming in late, and had to be sort of photoshopped into that moment, or whatever. They were moving in different spaces in different ways. So literally pulling them together for the portrait was a collage, not a frozen moment. And so I wanted there to be a sense of that kind of pulling together and fragmenting that a collage effect has. So you'll see that there's an irrationality to space and planes in it. There's the bench that the two daughters are sitting on comes in at an impossible angle. There's a shift in the speed of the background from a focused one side to a blurred other side. There's a scale shift that takes place between the figures in the family. And all of those things I felt were expressive of the moment that the experience that I had in trying to capture this family. Mm-hmm. Sculpture I arrived at much later. I began making sculpture in 1986, 87, something like that. The tragedy and trauma of 9/11 was that 3,000 people died, but you saw no bodies. So it was a disappearance. It was hard to find closure for this trauma. The only thing that we really saw was the people who jumped or fell from the buildings, and that was censored very quickly. But anyone who saw those images or saw the actual thing, that was the indelible experience. That was the one that drove home the terror, the horror of that event. I was watching it on television the way most Americans were watching it. And at some point in the midst of this horror, this tragedy, I had this very strong feeling that if artists were ever needed, now would be the time that they were needed. And that began my thinking process of how would I respond to this tragedy? How would I respond to this horror? I had this very strong feeling that we had been thrown off balance in a profound way, that we were in fact almost like sagebrush. We were all in this state of tumbling along. And out of it I created this sculpture called Tumbling Woman. I made it purposefully a female, but with a sort of masculine torso as well, so that it pulled both the male and female into a singularity, because it to me represented all of us. But I wanted it to be a female because the female historically brings with it ideas of nurturing and vulnerability, the need and desire in men to protect, things like that. So I felt that added to the experience that I was looking for.